You are once again welcome back to my channel. This is toontumnetwork. My name is Cyrus. I'm happy to have you here. Today we are looking at a couple of questions I picked up as I was doing a research on next week's episode, and I thought it was interesting. I brought you attention. It has to do with multiple questions and answers I got on the internet, and it cuts across all of Africa. And I'm pretty sure you want to know the questions and the answers to them in this episode, so please stay with me. Now, the surprising thing about some of these questions and answers was there were some of them that I totally didn't know at all. I mean, seriously, I didn't have any clue about. And for some of them, it caught me off guard because I was shocked those things or those answers were still there even in 2023. So I decided to make a list of 30 questions, and I promise you these questions will get you thinking. You may post your own questions in the comment section below, questions that you feel should have been included, and make sure you leave us the answer if you know. Thank you so much. So without further ado, let me start off with question number 1. Which African country has the most educated population? All right. Which African country has a population more educated than the rest of Africa? In terms of percentages, not numbers. Percentages. So the first country names that came to my mind were totally different from what the research actually taught me. And the answer is Equatorial Guinea, which has a literacy rate of 95.3%, which is more than 1.3 million people. Now, Equatorial Guinea has a population of 1.7 million people. And out of that number, 95.3% of them are able to read and write. That is what they term as educated. So the ability to read and write, not to solve any mathematical equation or put up a rocket in the air. No, read and write. So you may assume that because their population is small, that is why they are able to chalk such success. But that is actually wrong. Because if you look at other countries in Africa, such as Swaziland and Guinea-Bissau, Djibouti, and others, they haven't achieved such a percentage in education. So that clearly tells you that it's not because of the relatively smaller population size, but because of a government policy to deliberately educate their population. Now, question number 2 is the direct opposite of question number 1. And that is, which African country has the least educated population? And the answer is scary. The answer is Niger. Why is Niger being the least educated population in Africa scary? Because Niger has a population of about 28 million people. And guess what? They have a staggering 70% of their population uneducated. I mean, illiterate. They are unable to read and write out of a 28 million population. Isn't that scary? Tell me that is not scary. In a population of that size, in an era of technological advancement, we'll be able to survive in the years ahead when they are not able to read and write. That is scary. Question number 3 is this. Which African country has the best educational system? The answer goes to Seychelles. And this is according to businessinsider.com. I don't want to dwell too much on that. And the direct opposite of that question is question number 4. Which African country has the worst educational system? And it's still Niger. Let's move on. Let's look at some monumental records in Africa, shall we? Now, question number 5. The tallest building in Africa. The tallest of all the buildings in Africa is actually in Egypt. It's called the Iconic Tower, and it's 393.8 meters. That is about 1,292 feet tall. That is the tallest building in all of Africa. Number 6 is the longest bridge in Africa. It is also in Egypt. It's called the 6th October Bridge. It is 20.5 kilometers long. Interesting. Let's go to number 7. Most democratic country in Africa. The African country seen as most democratic. And businessinsider.com again gives it to Mauritius. Question number 8 is the cleanest country in Africa. And obviously everybody knows it. It's Rwanda. Kudos to President Paul Kagame. Question number 9, the dirtiest country in Africa, which is the direct opposite of question number 8. And the answer was actually also given by AfricaInsider.com. And they are looking at pollution at this point. Air pollution, water pollution, land pollution, all forms of pollution. In terms of dirty air, dirty land, dirty rivers, and all that is Chad. Interesting. Chad. That is a country I know very little about, to be honest with you. Question number 10 is a question I think will interest you, especially for the guys. The country in Africa with the most beautiful ladies. Take a wild guess. The first time I looked at this question, 3 countries came to mind. The first was South Africa. I considered Ethiopia. And I think I also considered my home country, Ghana. We have some pretty beautiful ladies down here, seriously. Okay, so what is the true answer according to the internet? And the answer is Ethiopia. I wasn't surprised at all. I think Ethiopia, being the country with the most beautiful ladies, isn't far from the truth. All right. So the direct opposite will be the African country with the most handsome men. Okay, the most handsome men. Again, I had my own answers in my head. I had two countries in my head. And surprisingly, most of my colleagues don't share the same opinion with me, but it doesn't really matter. The first country I consider in Africa as the country with the most handsome men, the first, is Cameroon. Surprisingly, Cameroon. I've met a lot of Cameroonians, and I thought they really had some very, very handsome guys. They look well built, they have good skin, and they are very confident, and they like to explore, and I like the way they naturally behave, okay, Cameroonians. And my second answer is Nigeria. That is where a lot of people don't agree with me, but hey, Nigeria. So what is the internet actually saying? The country in Africa with the most handsome men. And the answer on the internet is Somalia. Wow. Who thought this would be the answer? I mean, tell me in the comment section below if you actually had this country name as your answer. I want you to be honest with me. All right. I don't know a lot of Somalians. I have met few of them. They look, lanky. They look strong and a little taller. And I think they are pretty nice guys. Okay, solid guys. But I don't know that much of them in order to put them in that category. But that is what the internet is saying. Question number 12. Country with the highest abortion rate. I think I've done this before. Country with the highest abortion rate. And the answer, according to the internet, is Madagascar. That country down there. I mean, if you look at the numbers of abortions recorded in Madagascar, it's going to break your heart. I'm a pro-life guy, so anything that has to do with abortion, I do not support. About 367,000 abortions done in every year. This is because they have data on it. The only problem with the other African countries is they don't have data on it, because most of African ladies do not go to the clinics or hospitals to get their abortions. They will rather resort to other means. And so even though Madagascar has this staggering number, I still believe that there are other African nations out there who may have way more numbers than Madagascar. But honestly, I'll tell you this. We need more people in Africa. At no point would I say Africa is overpopulated or overcrowded. We have so much land, I don't see the need for us aborting our future. So question number 13 is the opposite of question number 12, which is the country with the lowest abortion rate in Africa. I think I've done this before, and the answer goes to South Africa. I'm so proud of South Africa for that. Number 14, country with the most honest people in Africa. Most honest people. The next question will be country in Africa with the most dishonest people in Africa. So wait for that. Now, which country is the most honest in Africa? What do you think? Leave me a comment. Say something. I want to hear your point of view. What country in Africa do you actually believe has some of the honest people? Well, you have to have dealt with these people in order to come to that conclusion. And from my experience, okay, the one country in Africa that I've dealt with and I thought they had some of the most honest people is Botswana. So when I did the research and the answer gave me Botswana, I was not shocked at all. Botswana people are truly, truly honest people. Now, let's go to that question. Question number 15, a controversial question, African country with the most dishonest people. This is what I found. But if you go on other platforms where they are asking questions, you see other nationals in Africa throwing some familiar names. Some of the familiar names included Nigeria, it included Ghana, it included Cameroon, but it mostly included countries in West Africa. And that is what surprised me. But there wasn't one country that stood out as the most dishonest country in Africa. All right, so let's veer off to other questions pertaining to resources in Africa. Question number 16. Which African country has the richest reserve of untapped resources? Untapped resources. They have it. It hasn't been developed. Which one African country is that? It is clear. Everybody knows it. It is as clear as day from night. The answer is DRC, Democratic Republic of Congo. It has so much natural resources. This is the estimate that is given to them. They are worth an estimated amount of $24 trillion. $24 trillion of reserve in that country. From gold to diamond to cobalt to timber to all manner of resources. I mean, they have coltan, which is actually used in storing electrical charge, which the whole world at this point is trying to move to electric vehicles. So they have that resource so much in their country. The answer is DRC. Question number 17. The African country with the highest, most tapped resources. So it's the opposite of the untapped resources. The answer is South Africa. South Africa has the resources, and most of them are well developed. And that is how they've been able to develop their country. I wish I could say the same thing about my country. Ghana is the biggest producer of gold in Africa, yet we don't see the benefit of it here. Yeah, it is what it is. Question number 18, the African country with the least natural resources. The least of all the resources. The answer is Seychelles. Surprisingly, even though Seychelles has the least amount of resources, it is one of the most developed countries in Africa. And what are they developing on? It's fishing and tourism. And I promise you, ladies and gentlemen, with these two resources, fishing and tourism alone in Africa, we can develop. There is so much we have here which the world wants to see. Meanwhile, there are African countries with so much resources and yet without the kind of development Seychelles has. Interesting. Question number 19. The African country with the highest consumption of alcohol. The answer, according to InsideThatMonkey.com, is Uganda. Uganda. Wow. Question number 20. The African country with the largest football stadium. The answer is South Africa, FNB Stadium, which has a capacity of 94,736. Question number 21. The youngest president in Africa. This is very recent, so I guess we all know it. It's President Traore, Ibrahim Traore of Burkina Faso. He's 34 years old. Question number 22 is the oldest president in Africa, and this is where I was surprised. Because ever since I was a little boy, it has been the same person who was singing songs mentioning his name when I was in kindergarten. And here I am, and he's still there. The answer is Paul Biya, who is 90 years old in Cameroon. He has been president since 1982, 41 years ago. Wow. Question number 23. The African country with the youngest population. And surprisingly, the answer is Niger. So according to Statista.com, Niger has a median age of 14.9 years old. So this is the country which has the youngest population in Africa, has the most illiterate number of people in Africa, and has the worst educational system in Africa. This is disaster in the making. I mean, what is going to cause this to change, where the people will get some education? This is scary to me when you have so much youth, with 70% of them with no form of education at all. Well, let's move on to the next. The African country with the oldest population, and that is Nigeria. According to Statista, again, this is Nigeria. Nigeria has about 12 million people who are aged above 60 years old. Wow. 12 million people older than 60 years old. That is a population bigger than many population in Africa. Wow. Nigeria. Wow. That is interesting stuff. Question number 25. The noisiest country in Africa. The answer again is Nigeria. Precisely Lagos. Question number 26. The most unpopular country in Africa. Unpopular, unknown, unvisited country in Africa. The answer is Equatorial Guinea. They have just about 6,000 international visitors in every year. So the opposite, which is the most popular, the most known African country, is, what do you think? The answer is Egypt. All right, I thought it was Nigeria, but if you go on the internet, most websites put Egypt and even South Africa before Nigeria. Interesting. Question number 28. African country with the highest IQ. This is a controversial question. The African country with the highest IQ in all of Africa. For those who don't know, IQ is intellectual quotient, meaning the ability to reason and solve problems. So which one African country has the highest IQ? On the internet, it says Sierra Leone. Wow. I mean, this is a country that most Africans don't even know their flag. They are regarded as the African country with the most intelligent people on the continent. Is that true? Is that true? I don't know. I've never been to Sierra Leone. I've met Sierra Leoneans. I think they are smart people. But to put them as the smartest people in all of Africa, that is controversial. Well, If that is the country with the highest IQ in Africa, then question number 29. Which country in Africa has the lowest IQ? I want you to Google it and find the answer yourself, because I couldn't find anything on the internet. And I don't want to throw up any names here. All right? So I'll leave the question as that. The African country with the lowest IQ is... I'll leave it to you. Now, in doing this whole 30 question thing, I needed to get my country Ghana somewhere on the list of something, and because of that, I had to try and look for a question that would sort of bring Ghana into it. So I went on the internet and searched, and this is what I found. The country in Africa, or the country in the world that is located in the center of the world. And the answer is Ghana. And it's actually in Tema. And so that will be the last question on my list. I know you guys have a lot of questions to pose, and I hope you guys will put it in the comment section below. Thank you so much for being a part of this. I'm setting up my studio to bring in certain key people for interviews. This channel is only going to get bigger, and I hope you guys will stay with me for the long haul. God bless you, and until I come your way again, please remember to subscribe, like, share, leave a comment if you have to. It's bye-bye for now.